Hello everyone, Vincent Teo from HDTV Test here. I'm a TV reviewer and professional calibrator. In this video, we're going to compare the picture quality of the Sony AG9 on my right here and also the LG E9 on my left here. Now, as you can see from the camera for yourself, the Sony AG9 is larger. This is 65 inches in screen size, whereas LG unfortunately didn't have a 65-inch E9 to send me, so I have the 55-inch model here. In an ideal world, I would have preferred to use two of the same screen sizes for this comparison to have a level playing field, especially when it comes to assessing upscaling and also motion judder. But such is our luck that we only have the 55-inch E9 here. It's just not big enough. I mean, not the first time I've heard this. But at least there are other attributes of picture quality that we can compare in terms of, let's say, contrast, near black handling, ABL or automatic brightness limiter, color accuracy, HDR impact, input lag for gaming, and so on and so forth. Before I proceed with the comparison, there are a couple of things that I would like to say. First is that these two televisions have been calibrated to the standards that is used within the film and broadcast industry for both SDR and HDR. But because of my camera's limited dynamic range and also because of YouTube's compression, not to mention that these OLED TVs do exhibit a slight blue tint off axis, what you are seeing in the video may not be representative of what is actually shown on screen, what I was actually seeing when I sit in front of these televisions. So please do not make any judgment on picture quality based solely on what you see in this video. That is all I'm going to say. And second, I would like to thank our sponsor for this video, namely UK electrical retailer Crompton Moore. They have been very kind to support my work on this channel on a number of videos, including this one. So if you are considering buying a new television, even if it's not this Sony AG9, which is also marketed as the Bravia A9G in the USA, or this LG E9, please support this channel by considering buying from them. Call 0113 244 6607, mention HDTV Test, and you will receive great price and service. Thanks again for your support. Okay, let's move on with the comparison then. These OLED TVs use the 2019 WRGB OLED panels from LG Display, but it is going to be the underlying video processing that will differentiate one set from another. Now, in terms of near black handling, in the past, Sony has always been the leader, maybe only matched by Panasonic when it comes to OLED televisions, naturally. But this year, LG has made some really great strides, and in some areas, they have even surpassed the Sony AG9. So let me explain. Since probably the end of 2018 and early 2019, we have come to realize that most OLED TVs on the market are affected by near black chrominance overshoot issue, manifesting as flickering or flashing artifacts, especially in bit-stuffed or very heavily compressed content, let's say from the likes of Amazon Prime Video, if you are not watching in UHD, or very heavily compressed broadcast material, let's say from the likes of ITV3 or ITV4 in standard definition or E4+1, something like that. But what LG has done is to acknowledge the issue and try masking it. I think the term would be masking it, because I don't think the issue can be completely eradicated. But what they have been doing to mask it is to increase the strength of dithering in an attempt to, first of all, improve the gradation, and secondly, to mask this near black chrominance overshoot issue. Whereas Sony is not really doing anything special, it is just relying on its own superior video processing to try and, let the TV do its talking. But unfortunately, as you can see from this scene from Better Call Saul Season 4, Episode 4, there are still some near black flashing artifacts on the Sony AG9, whereas it is adequately masked on the LG E9. Now, obviously, whether you will see these artifacts on the Sony AG9 depends on many factors, and I would say that during my review period for the Sony AG9, it is very, very rare for me to actually see it. I have to specifically search for it because, I mainly only watch high quality, pristine material, 4K Blu-rays, 1080p Blu-rays. I don't generally watch crappy channels on the Sony AG9 or in fact on any televisions, so I don't generally see it. But if you watch really bit stuff content or heavily compressed content, then be aware that the LG E9 will be able to mask the issue better than the Sony AG9. Also, because of their decision to tackle this issue, an unintended improvement on the LG E9 and also their 2019 range is that the near black quantization noise has been suppressed and the gradation has improved greatly as well. On top of that, LG has introduced 22-point white balance controls for the first time on their 2019 OLED range. So in the past, they always had a 2-point and also a 20-point white balance controls. So for the 20-point, it ranges from 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 100% in 5% video stimulus intervals. But on the 2019 range, they have introduced 2 extra intervals, namely at 2.5% and also 7.5% IRE. I say IRE, but realistically speaking, IRE, Institute for Radio Engineers, should be reserved for the analog domain. In the digital world, it should be called 2.5% and also 7.5% video stimulus interval. So because of these 2 controls, I could actually achieve greater precision in terms of the near black handling, in terms of the near black gamma. I could truly flatten it out. And as you can see, the results are spectacular. In this scene from Father Brown, which is captured off-air via terrestrial broadcast, the LG E9 actually looked cleaner than the Sony AG9, even with smooth gradation turned on both sets. And this is a testament to the precision and the granularity that is actually afforded by the 2.5% and also the 7.5% video stimulus controls, and also obviously my calibration skills as well, that I'm able to flatten the gamma to a really flat level. Again, I'm doing this manually, I'm still not using AutoCal. I'm able to flatten the gamma, and once you flatten the gamma, the steps as you're coming out from black is reduced, and therefore to me, on certain scenes, not all scenes, but on certain scenes, the LG E9 actually looked cleaner at the near black region than the Sony AG9, which is extremely surprising because in the past, Sony has always been the class leader in terms of near black handling, only probably matched by Panasonic. But this year, LG has taken the game to Sony, and in some areas even surpassed the Sony in terms of suppression of near black flashing artifacts, and also because of the increase in granularity of the 22-point white balance controls, I could actually achieve a cleaner look after calibration near black on the LG E9 and also other 2019 OLEDs from the South Korean brand, including the C9, than the Sony AG9, because the Sony AG9, even though it has a 2-point and also a 20-point white balance control, the 20-point white balance control only starts at 5%, then 10%. The 2.5% and the 7.5% controls on the LG really allowed me to do my work in a more precise manner to achieve a cleaner near black handling. So that is from the point of view of near black handling. Next, let's move on to color accuracy. And after calibration, these two are very close. I just cannot say that one panel is better than the other. And looking at this scene from Skyfall, you can pick up maybe some minor color differences in certain areas versus the other. But I couldn't say which is more accurate because I don't really have a reference broadcast monitor here. Next, I want to talk a bit about motion, and when it comes to motion, then we will be dealing with 24 frames per second for movie watching, and when talking about that, we will be disabling all the motion technology on the sets. So in terms of native 24p handling, I think both these sets, again, it's not going to be easy for me to make a fair judgment because the LG E9 is smaller. And when you have a smaller set, the judder or any 24p judder or telecine judder is not going to be as obvious as on a larger set, which is this 65-inch AG9 in this comparison. But when I displayed this scene from Lord of the Rings, the two towers. It's a slow zooming in, panning shot, and they both look very smooth to my eyes without engaging any motion compensated frame interpolation on both televisions. And I have actually tried to capture a really slow motion 1000 frames per second footage of both TVs to try and see if there are any differences when it comes to native 24 frames per second handling. And indeed, you can see a slightly different refresh rate, but I didn't actually have time to scrutinize and analyze this properly. And also, when I tried to bump my camera's frame rate up to 1000 frames per second, the resolution is really, really low. So the footage that you are seeing on screen here is really, really crappy. It's so compressed, so bit-stuffed. And I think, if you actually display it on an AG9 or something, then maybe you will even see some near black flashing or flickering artifact. That's just how bad the footage was. But when I have time, I will try and analyze the footage and see whether the way these two TVs are refreshing 24 frames per second footage differently has any impact on why some of you are actually seeing some differences in terms of the native 24p handling of Sony versus LG OLEDs. And if you have any ideas about how to analyze this footage, feel free to leave a comment in the YouTube section below. So that is motion handling without motion compensated frame interpolation, but I know many of you will be keen to use the respective motion technologies of these sets to increase motion resolution and reduce motion blurring. And you can see that both TVs, once you engage the motion compensated frame interpolation, it will boost motion resolution to the OLED ceiling of 650 lines. But when it comes to artifact-free presentation, the Sony is much better, because once you engage the true motion on the LG OLED on certain scenes, I'm showing this weather forecast from BBC News channel here, and you can see that on the LG there is some microstutter from time to time, whereas the Sony is totally smooth. So I think LG still has some catch-up to do when it comes to the implementation of their motion compensated frame interpolation, or MCFI technology. And I think Sony's motion flow system is still smoother and generates the least artifact among all major TV brands. So motion, and then we move on to video processing. Video processing, again, it's going to be extremely difficult for me to judge in terms of upscaling because of the different screen sizes. The smaller screen size will always look sharper, but at least you can see that Daniel Craig's face looked as sharp and detailed on the Sony AG9, which is a testament to the prowess of their X1 Ultimate processor. So both these TVs have smooth gradation, and engaging smooth gradation will smooth out the polarization in the sky even more, but there will be also some fine detail being scrubbed away on Matt Damon's face. So I think I only use it for poorly compressed content on both sets. And next we go on to HDR, and when it comes to HDR, let's first talk about ABL, or automatic brightness limiter. And in this expanding white circle pattern that we have altered ourselves, the LG E9 can get brighter at full screen white than the Sony AG9, which means that it has a less aggressive ABL, or automatic brightness limiter circuitry, than the Sony AG9. And indeed, full field brightness measured 160 nits on the LG E9 and 135 nits on the Sony AG9. Despite this, and also despite the peak brightness measurement on a 10% window, the Sony AG9 measured 530 nits, whereas the LG E9 measured 700 nits. You would expect that the LG E9 would look much brighter than the Sony AG9, but that's certainly not the case at all, because there is dynamic tone mapping under the hood on the Sony AG9 that will empower it to look as bright as the LG E9. Let's say in this fairly high APL beach scene from Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, when you display real-life content HDR10 on both sets, you can see that the Sony doesn't look darker than the LG OLED, because there is dynamic tone mapping under the hood that can analyze the picture in real time and boost the brightness appropriately in an accurate manner. Despite the dynamic tone mapping, the Sony AG9 still clipped or blow out some of the brightest specular highlight detail compared with the LG E9. For example, in this scene from Batman vs Superman. Now, the Sony AG9 and all Sony TVs, in fact, are using the low latency mode of Dolby Vision, which means that the processing is being done on the player rather than on the TV itself. Whereas LG has been using the full hardware Dolby Vision profile from the start, which means that it is capable of processing Dolby Vision content on the TV itself. And from my previous videos and also in my review of the AG9, I've commented that the Dolby Vision presentation looks slightly darker, and that's indeed the case when we did a side-by-side comparison using Mission Impossible Fallout played in Dolby Vision on both sets. Some of you have suggested to use Dolby Vision Bright to try and compensate, and indeed, that may be a solution, but from my experience, let's say in this very next shot, if I used Dolby Vision Bright rather than the most accurate Dolby Vision Dark mode on the Sony AG9, yes, it did brighten the picture, but it also washed out the picture a bit more, causing a more washed out appearance with a lack of depth compared with the Dolby Vision presentation on the LG E9 natively. So the Dolby Vision presentation is darker, and also when you go into the internal TV apps, I can still see that there are some near black posterization on certain shows. For example, this frame from Okja on Netflix in Dolby Vision, you can see that the gradation near black is just quite posterized on the Sony AG9 compared with the LG E9. So I much prefer the Dolby Vision presentation on the LG OLEDs, and maybe that's because they have been using the hardware-based solution from the off. Gaming. Input lag measured 13 milliseconds on the LG E9 and 26 milliseconds on the Sony AG9. And in addition to that, the LG E9 and also other 2019 OLEDs from the South Korean brands, including the C9, will support ALLM or auto low latency mode, as well as VRR or variable refresh rate. So if you are a gamer, I would think that the E9 or C9 would be the better choice than Sony OLEDs. So that is it in a nutshell, really. Very quick. I say quick, I keep saying quick, but it's going to be 20 minutes of this comparison video between Sony's and LG's 2019 OLED televisions. If you found this video useful, please click the like button and subscribe to the HDTV Test YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.